Adam Wright, the parish schoolmaster from Midlothian who sought to improve his career in Otago but ended up a lunatic inmate of the Dunedin Gaol.
Most of the time when we look back at our pioneers' migrant experiences, we chart them as positive story arcs. Ultimate success in New Zealand being vindication of decisions made back here in Scotland to chance their futures on Otago. But we can't really make such a case for Adam Wright.
His life unravelled spectacularly in the colony, ending in madness and death within 6 years of his arrival.
Little is known about his early years in Scotland, except that he was born in Kelso in Roxburghshire in 1814, the son of a stonemason of the same name. We also know that he entered the Free Church Normal School in Edinburgh in 1845 to begin his teacher training. But he next pops up here in the Scottish census in 1851 in Temple, just south of Edinburgh and Midlothian, where he's recorded as the schoolmaster in this parish school. Living in the same household, according to the census return, was a maidservant called Isabella Johnston, who'd been born here in Temple, as well as a 9-year-old girl who was possibly Isabella's niece and who was recorded in the census as visiting on that night. Shortly after the census was completed in June 1851, Adam married Isabella, and 8 months later she gave birth to their only child, a boy that they called John. The Wrights seem to have remained here in Temple for the next 5 years, living in the parish schoolhouse right up until the time of their departure for New Zealand. Then in June 1856, they headed down to London and set sail for Otago as steerage passengers on the Strathmore.
This was a period in which the Otago authorities were actively recruiting school teachers in Scotland as their network of primary schools around Dunedin expanded. 2 such newly recruited teachers were on the Strathmore, travelling cabin class at the provincial government's expense. But Adam Wright was not one of them. He seems to have emigrated instead, on spec as it were, hoping to find himself a teaching position after arrival.
Fortunately, we have a diary that Adam kept on board ship and for a few weeks after arrival, and from this we know that life was pretty challenging for new arrivals here in Dunedin. For instance, there were lice-ridden bunks in the immigration barracks, just one unpleasant facet that they had to put up with. So Adam wasted no time in searching for a teaching position. Despite having fallen ill, he tramped all the way out here to Green Island and successfully interviewed for a post of schoolmaster here.
Within a month of arrival, he was in place in his chosen profession. Sadly, this was the high point of Adam's colonial career. Within 3 years, he had fallen out disastrously with the Green Island school community, who considered his discipline too lax. He refused to strap the children, while attendance at the school fell away dramatically. It's hard to know now whether there were other problems as well, since the official reports from that time are quite circumspect. But in any case, in October 1859, he was dismissed from his post.
Publicity over the dispute at Green Island meant that Adam was unlikely to find another job as a school teacher in Otago, so instead he began advertising private tuition and evening classes from his home in a series of advertisements that appeared in various forms over the next year or so in the newspaper. It's unclear, however, if he got any pupils from that, and it must have been a nightmare scenario for a man whose family was dependent on his income. The stress or perhaps underlying mental conditions that are not recorded in contemporary accounts undermined his well-being to the extent that in January 1861, Adam was committed to the Dunedin Gaol as a lunatic. Now, at that time, there was nowhere else for mentally unwell people to be kept apart from the hospital, and evidently Adam's condition required more secure accommodation than that. So the jail, formerly on the site behind me, was the only place for him, but conditions there were really totally unsuitable. After making several escape attempts, he was handcuffed, but then he suffered a serious assault from a criminal prisoner. His condition then deteriorated steadily, and in July 1862, after 18 months incarceration in the jail, he died. The cause of death, debility. He just ran out, really. Now, how on earth would a family cope in such catastrophic circumstances? Well, we don't really know, but it may be that Isabella supported herself and their 10-year-old son by taking on work as a washerwoman. In any case, a woman of that name and Isabella's approximate age was subsequently committed to the Seacliff Lunatic Asylum, and she died there in 1888. She was buried here in Dunedin Southern Cemetery, and so was Adam, but they're not together, and there's no headstone on either grave.
You might also wonder about the fate of young John Wright, but here at least there's a happier story to tell.
He began farming here at Brighton as a 17-year-old and prospered at it for over 46 years. He also found his place in the community, serving on the Brighton School Board, being a foundation member of the Brighton Domain Board, and holding positions of responsibility in the Brighton Presbyterian Church for decades. And in the end, that was often the main motivation for immigrants, to find a place where their children could build better lives. John Wright certainly did so. And he never forgot his father's memory either, donating his diary and other treasured items to the museum collection.